Usually I say something that I try to be clever or quippy at the beginning of my episodes, but today I just don't have it. When somehow a 7-month-old baby ends up missing and presumed dead, when little Emmanuel Haro disappeared from the Icapa, California parking lot on August 14th, 2025, his parents Jake and Rebecca Haro spun a bullshit story about a mysterious stranger who said hola, knocked Rebecca unconscious, and vanished with their baby. But the whole damn story fell apart faster than a house of cards. I've spent just the right amount of time digging through this for all the details I can get up to now, and everything about it is going to make your blood boil. So many systemic failures against the most vulnerable among us. We're talking about a father with a prior conviction for child cruelty so severe it left a previous child blind, brain, and tube-fed for life. Yet somehow he's out there walking free and allowed to have more children. We're talking about a mother whose story had more holes than Swiss cheese, complete with the convenient unconsciousness and suspiciously timed black eye. We're talking about a child protective service system that apparently couldn't connect the fucking dots between this man nearly killed a baby and maybe we should keep an eye on the new one. Rebecca Haro's account of what happened reads like something a desperate person cobbled together in 5 minutes of panic. She claimed she was changing Emmanuel's diaper in the parking lot when some stranger approached, said hola, attacked her, and knocked her unconscious. In one account that she gave, she was standing outside the car leaning in, changing his diaper. In one account, she was sitting in the car with him. Yeah, well, that changes a whole lot. In one account, she said that she was attacked from behind. So that person would have been left-handed to make the black eye where it was? Just saying, that could narrow it down. The other thing is, when the person said hola, she turned around and then she got hit. That would make it a right-hand person. Just saying, I found holes myself. But the bruise evidence, now to me that really stood out. The cover photo I got for y'all shows Rebecca on August 18th. That's just 4 days after she claims that she was attacked. That bruise suspiciously looks older than 4 days to me. Anyone who's had a serious black eye knows that fresh bruises from trauma severe enough to knock you unconscious are typically dark purple or deep red, significant swelling that just isn't there. But Rebecca's bruise appears to be going into that yellow-green phase that typically doesn't show up for at least a week after the initial trauma. Here's another thing I'm going to tell you, and I'll state straight up that this is my opinion. I'm willing to bet that baby Emmanuel never made it to that parking lot. I would like to hear from some of the people at the football game that she had taken her other kids to. You know, they had 5 kids altogether living at that house. Yeah, 5 of them, poor babies. But I bet if people were questioned that were there at the football game, they probably wouldn't have seen Manuel. Well, the bruise evidence suggests to me that the injury could have been sustained days before the supposed attack and kidnapping. And they had taken a few days to formulate their story and get their act together. Well, this whole situation is falling apart as more questions are answered. No Amber Alert could be issued because there was no suspect description, no vehicle information, nothing concrete to go on. The people have to know what they're looking for in order to issue an Amber Alert. Security footage showed no evidence of any abduction, and there were plenty of cameras. When investigators started poking holes in her story, Rebecca did what all guilty people do. She shut the fuck up, stopped cooperating entirely. Even members of the public who saw her interviews said she was pretending to cry, but she had no tears, while Jake showed no real emotion at all. Too much eye contact, trying to make people uncomfortable. He's the kind that stares you down and tries to make you blink. Okay, it's the worst case of bad acting I'd ever seen. Worse than Susan Smith or Diane Downs. Y'all remember them? What I saw on her face, and again, this is just my opinion, I saw fear. I don't know if she's afraid of her husband, afraid of getting caught, afraid of the police, afraid of the jail time. But I promise you that was not the face of an innocent woman. And I hope with everything I've got that y'all can prove me wrong and that baby is out there somewhere. But here's what I know is a fact. Under California law, married couples can't be forced to testify against each other in criminal trials. This is called spousal privilege. But they can choose to testify voluntarily. And that's usually where the plea bargains come in. Whoever gets to the table first with the best deal will roll on the other one. Another caveat with that is it only applies to actually married people. If you're divorced, even separated, common law, none of that counts. You got to be legally married in the eyes of California. It doesn't cover crimes against family. Since Emmanuel was their child, spousal privilege may not apply to his murder at all. And I don't want to put it like that. I don't want to say his murder because I'm still hopeful. But since the parents were charged with murder when they picked him up, I'm kind of thinking the police are leaning that way. Well, more facts. I got some facts about Jake this time. It's really infuriating. Jake Haro had already destroyed one child's life, and the system let him walk free to do it again. In 2023, he was convicted of child cruelty for injuries inflicted on his then 10-week-old daughter back in 2018. This man's abuse left that baby blind, unable to walk, tube-fed, and functioning only with a small percentage of her brain intact, and that child will never recover because of what her daughter did. What her father did to her when I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm just going to trip over this. I'm getting very emotional as I'm reading it. So, what did the justice system do? He literally only spent one day in jail over that. They gave him a 6-month suspended sentence and some anger management classes. 6 months for destroying a human life. Yeah, to me, that's inadequate is just not a big enough word. Well, Jake's behavior didn't stop there. In July of 2024, he was charged with being a felon in possession of a firearm because apparently a man who nearly killed his own baby was walking around with a Palmetto State Armory handgun. And might I mention that his attorney's name is Private Vincent Hughes. So with those military designations on there, I'm just going to leave it to you to pull those connections together. But that's not all. Rebecca's family background adds another layer of dysfunction to the nightmare. Her brother, James Beehausen, was convicted in 2017 for murdering his girlfriend. Jaylyn Amanda Keith in Palm Springs, like his sister would do years later, Beehausen initially tried to pass his crime off as something else, claiming Keith's death was a suicide until investigators uncovered the inconsistencies. So the pattern of violence runs deep in this family. Public records suggest Rebecca had abandoned children from her previous marriage, and that paints a pretty picture of a woman with a history of failing to protect the children in her care. And when you combine that background with Jake's proven capacity for extreme violence against infants, Emmanuel never stood a chance. So where was Child Protective Services? Well, they're overworked and underpaid just like most of us. It could have been prevented. Jake should have had paperwork that, he couldn't have been around children at all. And somehow the system allowed him to have access to another infant. But I guess he was allowed to because it was his kid, right? People are asking some obvious questions. Why wasn't CPS making regular visits? Well, it happened that a 2-year-old was removed from their home, but it was only after Emmanuel disappeared. Was there any sort of intervention that could have happened when Rebecca became pregnant, knowing she was planning to raise a child with a convicted child abuser? CPS did eventually get involved on the 18th. Yeah, when they finally went over there to look, and that's when I was telling you they took that other little one. Yeah, he was taken into care after Emmanuel had disappeared. So despite the lack of Emmanuel's body, investigators built what they believe is a strong enough case to charge both parents with murder. They've conducted extensive searches. They've used canine scent dogs, served multiple warrants, collected Jake's vehicle for evidence processing, and reviewed what they describe as a large amount of surveillance video. The fact that they're proceeding with murder charges without a body tells us they have found some really compelling evidence that Emmanuel has passed and his parents are responsible. So just a tiny little recap. The justice system gave Jack Haro a slap on the wrist for nearly killing his first child. Child Protective Services didn't maintain oversight of a known child abuser who had access to a new infant. This isn't about two individuals who allegedly killed their baby. It's about a whole bunch of things that went down like dominoes. And unfortunately, Emmanuel is the one who got the short end of that stick. The little boy deserved better than parents who allegedly killed him, better than a system that couldn't protect him, and better than a society who allowed his father to walk free after nearly killing another child. But what I can tell you for a fact is the search for his body will continue for a time. The forensics team is at their house now, and they're working away as we speak. Jake's attorney was let past the police line to go look at whatever they're finding out there. And that is all I know for now. And I will keep you posted. As soon as I know anything, so will you. Hug your kids for me. Sweet dreams.